Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. I'm Alex Whiteley, and today I'm coming from Windsor House, which is nice because we're in the boardroom where the first time I stood up in front of the guys from the Shrewsbury Beard and various places that were planning the Darwin Festival. And this is the place where I stood up a few years ago and I was like, you guys have never heard of a podcast, but you will do in a couple of years. And here we are today. Everybody and the dog is making a podcast. So it's changing the world slowly. And today I'm speaking to the folks from AFP, Shrewsbury, to talk about this changing situation that we've got with money and finances. The world is changing. Things are getting more expensive all of a sudden. It's not just one thing. It's like loads of different things. It's fuel. It's your energy for your house. It's also food is going up. The fuel you put in your car. Everything. It seems like everything's going up. So we're here today to try and discuss ways that you guys can stay ahead of things and not fall on the wayside. So first of all, should we get names? We'll go around the table.
Morning, Alex. Gary Harper.
Gary Harper. Nice to meet you. And yourself?
Morning, Alex.
Hello.
Jessica Harper.
Hi, Jessica. First of all, thank you for coming to say hello to me. We were in Cups Coffee, and I was interviewing Peter Metcalf for the proms. And the funny thing is, you came, you were like, I've got a business card, and I didn't have my business card on me. So I put loads in my wallet, but I forgot my wallet today. It's so funny, it's so stupid. But thank you very much for coming and saying hello and introducing yourself, because this is one thing. I was always taught that you're not supposed to talk about money and politics, right? But I think the money side of things, to a degree, we do have to talk about, right?
Yes.
It shouldn't be things that we keep to ourselves. We should definitely talk about our stresses and our troubles and see if we can get through it together, right?
Absolutely. I think it's more important these days than ever. Basically, for the reason that you've just said, everything seems to be going up, and people need to keep a track on their spending. And probably the best way to do that to start with is probably get their bank statements and go through what they're actually spending everything on. Take a look at that. Look at the essentials, such as their utilities. Can they make any savings there? The area that we concentrate on is obviously mortgages. If you've not reviewed your mortgage in the last 2 years, then definitely that's something that you might be able to make serious savings on.
I'm not very good at planning stuff like this. I mean, I don't have a mortgage, but I have money, like a lot of people, and I don't pay attention to all the details that's going in and going out. And if things are difficult one month, I'll just cut back on certain things, and then I'll probably go and make the same mistakes again next month. And then slowly it'll start to sink in. What did I go wrong? People are different, aren't they? Some people are very anal about their budgets and how things go in and out. So everybody's different. What we'll do, though, I think, is really, we kind of just started teetering into that. But what we'll talk about is AFP and where it came from and where it originated from. So can you tell us where AFP came from? And
AFP stands for Advanced Financial Planning, and the reason we named it that was back in the day we used to advertise in the Yellow Pages, which some of you might remember, and it was either that or Aardvark Financial Planning to get us in the A's on the
very clever
people. Yeah, it's so old hat now. But we've been based in Shrewsbury for around 20 years now, and I've been working in the industry for 30. So we've got quite a bit of experience.
Experience through so much turmoil when it comes to finances over the decades.
We've gone through the financial crash of 2008 and various other sort of areas that have been really bad. Yeah.
And generationally, obviously, we've got people of all ages around this table. Generationally, do you think people are starting to have a different understanding about finances because of how they've experienced things in their life?
Yes, I think younger people are probably more astute than we give them credit for. They can check their bank balance, check their statements quite readily on their phones. So they really need to make a note of what they're spending their money on and try and economise, because obviously things are going up. Rents are going up. If you haven't got a mortgage, rents are going up. So that's another area. Petrol's going up, food's going up. Yeah. Utilities going up, so not great.
Can't all have that Instagram lifestyle, folks. And, I was talking to someone about that actually a while ago, that a lot of Instagram accounts and all these glam photos and stuff, a lot of them are just not genuine. These people don't have the money that they make out that they have. They make themselves look glam and stuff, and they're actually living in destitute conditions. It's bizarre to think about that is happening, but that's the kind of lifestyle people want to show that they've got. The sunglasses, the cars, the beach, it's a bizarre world we're living in. Why can't people just be people? I've got a podcast. I am who I am. I don't need to look glam or anything, but I don't know.
You look very glammed.
I do. I am. Thank you. I do. I like you. We're going to get on really well. Obviously, this isn't the first financial crisis that's happened over the few decades we've had. But how does this differ from everything else?
I can't remember a time where everything seemed to be going up all at the same time. I mean, we've had periods where interest rates have gone up considerably, and they're still relatively low historically. But I can't remember a time where food was going up, petrol, everything you spend more or less seems to be going up at the moment. It's difficult to recall a time like that. It's really quite bad at the moment.
And we're seeing this. It's going to sound like a stupid thing to probably bring up, but maybe you tell me. To be honest with me as well, we're seeing there's a new story a couple of days ago about Netflix. They're losing a lot of subscribers because they jumped the gun and were like, "We're going to put the prices up," and everybody went, "Well, no, we've got other things we're going to look at. We're not going to pay for our subscription." Do you think this is a hard time for businesses now because they've got to gamble, they've got to make the decisions before everyone else does, otherwise they're going to fall by the wayside?
I think a lot of people will look at their sort of subscriptions to Netflix, Sky, and places like that. Do they really need them? There's quite a lot of money it's costing people. So people are dropping out because it's the easiest thing to cancel. You can't cancel your utilities so easily, or your rent or your mortgage, but you can cancel subscriptions. It's
weird that we might see this trend because everything started separating into like Netflix and Disney and Paramount and HBO, and everything was sort of splitting off. So now what we're going to see, like you just said, people will start just going, well, I don't need that, I don't need this. So they're not going to be able to get those shows. We're going to see a spike in pirating. People illegally downloading TV, not subscribing. So then things might start coming back into the centerfold again. And, then people start buying. It's weird how these things affect everything. And let's not talk about Netflix and stuff all the time. But it's just one of those indicators, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it was the first year that they got less viewers for a long time. So, they're always expanding. But this time they're losing quite a lot of viewers. I read that.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to looking after your finances, what's the first thing you look at? Obviously, there are the signs. Things aren't going out. There's less disposable income that you can use, or I don't know. What are the first things that you can start doing to sort of start making plans to change the way you spend?
I would say what you need to do is to take a look at your bank statements, which set aside half an hour at the weekend and just sort of go through. I mean, I'm still quite surprised. My father, who's in his 80s, still goes through his bank statements and ticks off everything that he's spent on. He keeps all his receipts and then goes through them, which is it's a little bit much. But I know I should be doing that as well. But that's probably the best start, is to go through your what you're spending on. Do you really need to spend it on that? Is there any savings you can make? Can you walk to work rather than drive and park, and things like that? So just little things, but daily changes. I think if you have a coffee every morning, it ends up costing you about £100 a month. So you could make a savings there.
Yeah, bear that in mind, Shrewsbury.
Sorry, that's not good for the coffee industry.
Not for Shrewsbury. And there's two ways to look at this, isn't there, when it comes to finances, especially with your industry. When we talk about mortgages, and there's people with a mortgage that could get their houses repossessed if they're not careful, and there's people trying to enter the market into the ladder there. And obviously we've got to look at both things possibly separately. So if you feel like you're going to start struggling, obviously you can go through your statements and look at, well, oh my God, these things I can't survive no more. How do you keep your house in this situation?
I think the main thing is not to bury your head in the sand and hope it will go away. Is obviously keep an eye on what you're spending your money on. Try and make positive steps to reduce your spending so that you can keep within your budget, or even set yourself a budget of how much you're going to spend when you go out for a night, how much you're going to spend when you go for a meal, and keep an eye on things like that, and then you can save money and know how much you've got to spend rather than go overboard.
Yeah.
As a young person, I find a lot of the time in our cases that young people that come forward to purchase a house, when they get to that point, they are paying for mortgages that are cheaper than rent. And if rent's going up, you have more control of your mortgage because it's consistent and it's your mortgage and it's yours. So one of my advices would be, as a young person, is when you get to that point, to get on the property ladder. Because then, you've got your house, you can decorate it the way you want, and it's yours then. And then if you get onto that point of maybe one day renting it out, it's always going to be consistent income for when you get to that point. So I find a lot of the cases that we have is young people end up paying less for a mortgage because it's over a longer period of time compared to that sort of stamp on rent, which is really quite high at the moment.
Yeah, it is quite scary. But I mean, it sounds so simple, doesn't it? When you're young, just grab a mortgage. You can't just grab a mortgage, can you? No. They look at every single, they look at every single aspect of your life, and they look at, they really judge, critique. They look at everything that's going on, and they're like, well, you can't afford a mortgage, you can't have this, you can't have that. What steps would you say to put into to be able to, as a young person, be able to attain a mortgage in the first place?
I think what you need to do is ideally just drop us an email or drop a local mortgage advisor an email, and they'll go through your income and outgoings and work out maximum affordability so that you know roughly what you can buy and what it will cost you per month. I think the main thing to do is to plan ahead, not sort of wake up on a Saturday morning and go and try and buy a house and then try and get a mortgage after you've put an offer in. Is to work out what you can afford, what it's going to cost you, and then go backwards from there and try and find a property that meets your budget.
It's a scary time for a young person to buy a house. I imagine exciting, scary, mixed. I've got a few friends that are young, a lot younger than me, that have just gone out and they're now on the ladder and got their houses and stuff. Very exciting time. But there are people like me in the 30s and not on the ladder yet, and you think, because, you're saying from a young age paying a mortgage, it's not very expensive. But for me, someone like me that's not got as long to live, then it might be like, oh, you're going to pay a lot more now for a mortgage. And I've got all these experiences with my finances that I don't get personal with people on my podcast, but it's difficult for everybody, isn't it? So what would you say to someone that was in sort of later on in life wanting to get on the ladder? How do you do that?
I think a lot of it for us that we find is people getting over that step of actually reaching out and contacting. I think a lot of them perhaps feel a bit embarrassed about what they might have, in their bank account or their previous past of expenses. And I think it's getting over that leap of actually just reaching out to a financial advisor or a mortgage broker and being like, look, this is what I have, and putting it out on a plate. Is there any way I could afford a mortgage eventually? And, quite a few people do get surprised as to, even if they've got maybe a few issues with their finances, they actually can afford something of whatnot, and they can eventually get a house.
So it's about having that conversation.
Yes, yeah.
Some of the energy to be able to talk to people about
100%, yeah.
Because like you were saying at the beginning, don't bury your head in the sand. It's not worth it. Sometimes there are problems you can solve with little decisions that you can make, right?
That's right. I would, definitely don't bury your head in the sand. Try and get some advice on what you can afford, and see if you can, buy somewhere yourself or do something like that. Because as Jessica said, in the long run, it does work out more cheaper, and you'll end up owning the property. Your mortgage won't generally go up year after year, whereas your rent will. So if you look at the long term, what rents were 20, 30 years ago, they're considerably more now than they were then. Whereas people who took a mortgage out 20, 30 years ago probably got very little left to pay if they've paid it all off. In terms of the older people, you can quite often get a mortgage to age 75 now, a residential mortgage, and a buy-to-let mortgage you can take to any age. They will lend till you die and then ask for the money back then. So it's not, so someone in their 30s can easily have a 30, 35, even a 40-year mortgage,
Well, I intend to live forever. I want to be Futurama, head in a jar. That's what I want to be. I don't care how I look as long as I'm sentient. Let's just keep going that way. Yeah? And you guys are here to solve problems for people. I've done my research. I know that you guys help people. This is what you do, right? So with what's going on lately, I imagine you've had lots of panics. Lots of people writing a car. Oh, what's going on? Have you noticed that? Over?
People panicking?
Yes, at the moment, in the last few weeks.
Not too bad. We're always available for advice, for people who've got existing mortgages and things like that, and when they're coming around for reviews. I think there's a few people panicking about their mortgage reviews. So when they come to an end of a fixed rate, they want to be sure they can get another rate, and they want to do it as soon as possible. So, but we try to contact clients at least 6 months in advance to let them know that their rate is going to change, and have they got any plans to move house, or should we just switch them to a cheaper rate. So we sort of install that as part of our service to offer them a review of their finances every couple of years.
It's all fascinating for me because I'm on the outside, obviously not being on the ladder. And I love learning about new things. So, with the world and the way it changes, I imagine your trade, it just, whether it comes to prices going up, prices going down, fluctuations in the market, and in Shrewsbury they're building more and more houses. That must affect things as well. How do you guys stay ahead of the game? How is it possible to be able to give people the right advice, knowing that factors around your environment change all the time?
Well, we do a lot of continued professional development, so we regularly read up on what's going on in the market, what products are on offer. So, Help to Buy has been a big advantage for house builders, in that people can buy and Help to Buy by putting down as little as 5%, getting a 20% equity loan from the government, and then getting a mortgage of 75%. So they get a good rate. The only problem with that is, obviously, the government always owns 20% of your property, which you have to pay them back at some stage. So
it's very clever it's very shady, very clever on the government's behalf, because they're like, well, we own how many millions of houses, in some degree. That's incredible. That really is incredible. It's scary, actually.
It's a good scheme. It does help a lot of first-time buyers. I think that the problem arises when people want to pay it off, and if their income doesn't rise rapidly, then they may sort of struggle to pay it off over in 5 years' time or something like that.
Wow, it reminds me of Mary Poppins. How many houses have we repossessed this week? Because it is dog eat dog sometimes with finance, but you've got to be able. There's got to be steps for everybody, right? Because it can't just be like, oh, I've got no money now, that's it, my life is over. You've got to be able to put in things in place to be able to sort of help yourself. Maybe before it gets too late. I think that's what you're saying right now. There's things you can look at, your statements, and there's decisions you can make about what you can spend here and what you can spend there. That's fantastic. So, what we're looking at now, the three things that we've discovered so far with this podcast is, number one, don't bury your head in the sand. You need to have these conversations with your friends, with your family. You don't have to get too big. Go put your arm around somebody in the spa shop and be like, do you know what I spent last, but you can't bury your head in the sand with these things. Number two, look at your incomings and outgoings, right? Make sure there's not too much going out. We all know how to do that. That's not too bad. And then also as well, maybe draft in some sort of budget plan so that you're not spending too much on going on holiday, or you're not spending too much in the pub at the weekend. So these are three important things that we've already discovered so far. Is there anything else that you got on the tip of your tongue right now that you're dying to say that you would like to tell young buyers or people that are struggling right now?
I think as a young person, the hard thing is living up to social media.
Good, yeah.
So, when you're going out and you're flashing your pictures all over Instagram of you having your Prosecco, or, you buying a new outfit. I mean, look at fast fashion. It's completely boomed because young people now are under the pressure of wearing a new outfit, looking good, looking the part, and kind of presenting that on social media. And I think personally, a lot of that we need to walk away from and kind of take that pressure.
It's kind of gross, isn't it? A lot of
our
it.
Shoulders, yeah. You know, I'm a young person. It's not as, I don't feel the pressure as much, but I definitely know that younger people feel it. You know, 18, 19, you can just tell by their Instagrams or their TikToks and that sort of thing. I mean, I don't even have TikTok, and I'm a young person.
I do. Well, I don't do that. You do? I don't do none of that dancing stuff. What I do is I repurpose some of my content so people can enjoy it in little snippets. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And, you know, that expense of going out and kind of flashing all that is, you know, money that could be put towards a deposit for a house, or put towards a house to buy eventually at some point, or, you know, your bills.
And you may think that this is kind of a new trend, but it really isn't. You know, over years there's been fashion trends and fads and things that, you know, in the 80s, you know, the big fur coats and this. I don't know where it is, but there's always some sort of fad or some trend where you've got to try to fit in with a local community. But I think what you're saying is social media kind of just it expels that at a huge rate. You know, it's hugely amplified, and you know, social media is both a brilliant and a terrible thing especially for that thing. And you know what I would say to young people, if I know there are young people that listen to my show, hi guys, but what I would say is that, you know, you don't need to pay attention to that. And it's I don't want to sound like you parents who are like, just ignore the bullies, just, you know, but you really don't have to live up to those expectations, especially when you get to my age and you just don't care anymore. It's kind of, this is what I am, you know. We're all going to end up like that eventually at some point where we just don't care anymore. And you know, life isn't 5 minutes long. It's not. It is a literal lifetime. So don't go blowing all your money on some useless thing you're going to show on Instagram for 500 likes or something. You know, it's a silly, strange scenario that we're all living in right now. I don't see how that. The thing is, though, with social media and how people move with things, you know, we heard about cancel culture and memes and GIFs and all the way that people gravitate and move around things. Maybe one day we'll be like, actually, no, this is gross. We don't like that. And they'll cancel that. I don't know. We should definitely do that.
Definitely. Good idea.
With what's going on with the current finances, there's a lot of people at the moment, including me, my wife, you know, the prices will drop. The prices will drop. They've got to drop, haven't they? They've got to. Are we? Can we take that gamble? Are we allowed to take that gamble? How are we supposed to think about finances and the way they fluctuate?
Do you mean house prices?
No, with everything, the prices of fuel and stuff. You know, I'm waiting for the I don't want to be paying $170 for diesel every week. Do you know what I mean? We need to be able to plan ahead, and we can't really do that at the moment because we don't know what's happening with the finances around the world.
Yeah, I think fuel prices are astronomical at the moment.
It's ridiculous. I mean,
prices have gone right through the roof. I'm assuming that, you know, when the supply of petrol increases, the price should drop.
Yeah,
because it
supply and demand.
Yeah, typically does drop. Food prices seem to have increased. I'm not sure whether that's as a result of Brexit or the war or something like that. But yeah, everything seems to be going up.
It seems to be very opportunistic at the moment with a lot of it. And you know, I'd love to. In fact, I do know what I'm going to do. I'm going to get. I had Extinction Rebellion come on my show a couple of years ago because I wanted to give them a voice. Okay, you got this thing you want to say, and let's talk about that. And I can see the points in a lot of what they're trying to make, but until we've got the infrastructure in place, people, let's not block up the oil refineries yet. I get what you're trying to do. Fair play. Let's try and make changes to make the world a more sustainable place. But in fact, I think they're actually causing more damage at the moment, I would say, possibly around the world. Especially when it comes to people having their oil stolen from the house for their heating for the year, you know, because of this, you know, there's so much going on at the moment with the world. So how can people start a conversation with you guys as opposed to stepping out onto the ladder?
What we typically do is we send them a questionnaire to complete to give us an idea of what their income is, what their outgoings are. We can quickly work out an affordability for them as to what sort of mortgage capability they've got. And then we can also do a full illustration as to what all the costs are involved in the mortgage process. So we like to give the clients all the information so that then they can have a think, have a chat over the weekend, come back to us and say, yes, they want to go ahead or no, they don't. But yeah, initially to start with, I would suggest, you know, clients look at, help to buy ISAs, things like that, where they can get a bonus from the government if they save for a certain period of time when they come to buy a house. A lot of lenders allow gifted deposits. So if you've got a rich auntie or uncle,
Be nice, wouldn't it?
the lenders are quite happy to accept gifted deposits. So that's
Sure they are. It's money.
Yeah.
Would you like this money or this money? Money's money, isn't it? It's an interesting. I guess though that makes a lot of sense, though, doesn't it? Because if you suddenly materialise money out of somewhere, you haven't earned that, and there isn't. It doesn't look like you've. Yeah, I get.
We get a few people who suddenly have £30,000 in their bank account, and
where did that come from? Then?
Yeah, exactly. Lenders get suspicious, so they're better off saying, it's come from their parents, grandparents, or whatever, or letting us know where it's come from, and then we can let the lender know, and we just get them to sign a letter to say it's a gift rather than a loan, or it's come from unknown sources, which nobody likes.
A couple of years ago, I interviewed an amazing lady. Her name is Dr. Joanna Dodd-Massey, and we had this amazing conversation about intergenerations and how working together. Because generations, they tend to not really get on. There's always seems to be that buffer, that kind of Generation X don't get on with my generation, or this, that, and there's always seems to be that tension between generations. Until recently, there seems to be an integration with a younger generation working with an older generation, and each learning from each other. And have you found we've got two different generations now here that you guys are learning from each other, and do you think it helps in the way you operate?
Definitely. I think it's handy to have young people in the office who give you an idea of what how to market things. Jessica does a lot on our marketing side and promoting us through social media and stuff like that. I've got a little idea of it, but
we get some TikTok dances going.
I'll try at the weekend, but I'm not that good a dancer.
No, me neither. I said I'll go on TikTok, but I ain't be doing no dancing. So I haven't done a dance yet, and that's not happening. I'm sorry,
okay.
Never. But no, I think it's really important that we do listen to our peers, and the peers listen back. Because there is an old-fashioned way of things where we look at policies and how things, and which is right. There is definitely some need for following the rules, strict guidelines. But then maybe let's throw a bit of colour on this thing. Let's look at things at a different angle, a newer way. Do you agree, Jess?
Yeah, I completely agree. Working with people that are of a different generation, they're more wise, you could say. And it's definitely interesting, working with a company and kind of learning the ropes of how to run that company and that sort of thing, because I'd be completely blind to that sort of thing. And
yes.
It's completely interesting to kind of get the grips of how it works, taking into account, the products you sell, how you sell them, taking into account, your tax calculations and that sort of thing if you're self-employed, say. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's just completely interesting because it's something that perhaps I will get to that step one day.
Yeah.
And I'll be able to know what to do. And just knowing a mortgage is so important, I think. Mm-hmm. And knowing the process of a mortgage that people are completely blinded to, especially as a young person. And a lot of it is that people think it's boring, can't really be bothered. My friends who will slowly move into the property market at some point have no idea what even a mortgage is. And it's just a really important key element to your life.
Yeah, and what I love about it is how all generations have to learn about something new together. And one of the most, I think, when it comes to finances, one of the most intriguing things is possibly being able to pay with things with your phone and with your watch. Things like this, because it's quick spending. You don't have to go to the ATM to get money out. You don't have to get your card out and put it's quick, isn't it? Bop, 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 bop. You can just, as you walk out, bop, with your watch. It's just nuts, right? So I imagine that kind of new trend is something that's fairly new in the last 3 or 4 years. And so that we've all had to learn that together. And I guess that must affect finances somehow. The fact it's so easy just to go to the pub, one more, bop, it's just, I don't know, maybe that's something that we can all sort of learn together, both generations. And you know what? I think you were right when you talk about, listening to your peers and stuff. Going into the radio and doing the radio stuff now. There are people that have been doing the radio for lots of years, and they do their thing. Hey, welcome to the radio, and they've been doing that for X amount of years. I'm like, I really want to learn from these people. They're amazing folks. They've been doing it for years, but at the same time, I want to do it in a new style as well. So I want to learn. I want to speak to everyone so that I get it right. Okay, so is there anything that you want to add before we've been going for half an hour now? Is there anything that you think we've missed as far as mortgages and how things are changing at the moment? How can
I would just say plan ahead. Try and find out what documents are required, what you can afford, and go from there. We typically do an agreement in principle for clients, which is a certificate that says yes, they can get a mortgage of such amount. Once they've got that, they can then go and put an offer in on a property through the estate agents. Most estate agents won't consider your offer unless you've got an agreement in principle or you can show funds to buy the property. So it's just doing things one stage at a time, and then planning, getting all your documentation together and going from there. But you've got to find the right property for you is the hardest thing. I think these days there's a shortage of supply out there. Sorry, Jess, was there anything that you wanted to add as well? Is there anything?
Just as a tip, I would perhaps try and limit spending to present on social media. Limit your meals out and that sort of thing, and kind of even just putting £5 a week away, which is not much at all. That will really make a difference in the long run. And just hopefully building up a bit of savings that might be able to help you out to buy a house eventually, or pay for your bills comfortably at some point.
And obviously, your credit rating goes in a lot into your mortgage and stuff. There's loads of websites out there on how to build your credit rating. But is it that simple? Your credit rating has to be X amount before you can get a mortgage.
Generally, if your credit's reasonably good, most people will be able to get a mortgage. If you've not paid bills, if you've let things slip, then your credit rating will drop. And it's worth checking on one of the sites as to what your credit rating is before you even apply, because if it's fair or poor, you're going to have to put a bigger deposit down, or you're going to pay a higher interest rate. But your credit rating is like a fluid thing, so it's not static. You can improve it as time goes on. The longer ago the credit problems that you had were, the less significant it is. So just keep an eye on that.
And to everybody that is going to start is worried, and that you are going to start struggling. There's a lot more people than you realise that's going to be struggling together. So my advice to you guys is to talk about things. Don't bury your head in the sand. Don't feel like this is one of those phrases that you hear. Don't bury your head in the sand. I mean, you are going to be feeling anxiety. You're going to be feeling scared. You're going to be feeling frustrated, and you're going to be feel like you're not allowed to talk about this with your people because you're not. Maybe you feel ashamed, maybe you feel scared. You can talk about these things with people, and even if it's not even if it's a hotline like the Samaritans or something like, just to get it off your chest, just to talk about it is just going to be such a relief for you. And if you do it a few times with a hotline or with someone that is impartial to you and isn't part of your circle, the more you talk about it, the easier it will get. And then you can start making your plans, and then you can get the strength to start, looking at your bank statements. Actually, what is that there? Talking about these things, even if it's to a brick wall or a hotline or a podcast, a vlog, an anonymous blog that you've written. These things are very, very important. So don't feel like you can't talk about these things, because it's very important that you do. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. Discuss your finances with whoever, but talk about it, because chances are you'll find other people in the same situation.
Yes.
So that they'll be concerned as well.
Amazing. Where can people follow you guys on social media to keep in touch with what's going on?
So we're currently on Facebook under AFP Shrewsbury. We've recently joined LinkedIn as well under AFP Shrewsbury again, and then of course the website. If you just type us in, you can find us on the website. So not hit TikTok yet, but maybe.
You've done some videos, haven't you, Jess?
Yeah, we've got a few videos going on. a few competitions if you guys want to get involved.
Really?
Yeah, and we're actually currently raising trainers. We're keen runners in our office. So we're raising some trainers, as many trainers as possible, secondhand or, used trainers that are lying about in your wardrobe or wherever. And we're going to be sending some of all of them off to Ukraine.
Amazing, really good. And I did see actually on the website that you do a lot. You did a great job for the ARC last year, and you guys do a lot for the community. So thank you for doing that. It's really nice. It's a nice touch.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed chatting to you guys. I know it's not an easy subject, and if you listen to this podcast, I'm not a finance guy. I did an interview with Nick Jones from Frogmorton, and I was just like, while Nick very amazingly eloquently spoke about money and finances, and the same with this as well. I'm not, like you said, you talk about, you don't know what a mortgage is. I know what a mortgage is, but when you talk about like percentages and this and that and the other, I do sort of get foggy headed. So having this conversation like this was kind of daunting for me, but I think we've all learned something from this. So thank you very much for tuning in. I want to tell you guys about our website as well, which is the shrewsburybiscuitpodcast.co.uk. All of our content is playable from there. That's if you don't want to follow us on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. So that's the shrewsburybiscuitpodcast.co.uk, and that's made for us by our friends by Web Orchard. If you need a website, doesn't matter what you do. If you have an Etsy account, if you have a business, they will make the perfect website for you, like they did with us. Also, as well, I want to tell you guys that we are going to be moving our audio hosts. We're not going to be using Podbean anymore. We're going to move to a different. It's called Activate. And it's amazing because there's a couple of things that I'm closing off that I want still to exist, and there's new things I'm working on, and with that I can have all of that and it can all be live. So I'm going to move that over. What I would do is pay attention to social media, look for new links. If you do listen to us on Spotify or iTunes, make sure you hit that subscribe button or the whatever it is, the follow button, whatever it is on the app you use. And that's not to get more followers, that's just so it follows you when we move over. So, yeah, thank you so much for chatting to me today, guys.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks.
It's been awesome. And we will catch you guys next time.
Thank you.
Peace out.